everyone, welcome to this GEO Dialogue on open knowledge. The topic today is Citizen and Participatory Science. I will be your host, and you will meet the different speakers as we move along in the program. My name is Lilja Bye. As I said, I'm from Norway, and I'm a member of the GEO Data Working Group. So the GEO Dialogue series is organized by the GEO Data Working Group. And I will introduce you immediately to the program. So hold on. So just a few words about me. So I have been involved in the GEO community for many, many years. I have had numerous roles from principal to the program board, in the work program, and now I'm active in the data working group. I came before I started this research and consultancy company I run from the Norwegian Mapping Authority, and that's how I was introduced to this global community of Earth observations. Just a few words on how to behave in this meeting, housekeeping. When you are not speaking, please make sure that your microphone is off. You are more than welcome. You are actually encouraged to ask questions and comment in the chat, and you can do that at all times. When we come to the dialogue part, so after the presentations, we are engaging you in an actual dialogue, and that's when you can raise your hand and we will give you the floor so you can speak. With that, enjoy our dialogue series. So the program of today is that we are first introduced, as per usual, to the GEO Open Knowledge Statement and the subject and the principle of today, which is now Citizens and Participatory Science. This will be given to you by my co-organizer, Marie-Françoise Voidrot from OGC. Then we will be introduced more to citizen science and citizens observatory and learn more if it's more than just data by Uta Wen. Then we will discuss how we can combine citizen science with other types of data, etc., and interoperability. So the interoperability topic will be covered by Joan Masso. We got an excellent example of a long-term engagement with citizens. It's a jellyfish case by Dori Edelist. And we have also a very interesting case of how to engage and make the citizens participate in a project called Sailing and Learning Together, Uniting with Fishers for Conservation and Sustainability by Anis Saruk. And then the discussion is for everybody. The presentations will be short, and I remind everybody that we will be able to both inform of more details and discuss in the discussion part, in the dialogue part. So be patient. And during the presentations, by the way, we will also publish some very simple polls, and we encourage you to participate in these polls. It's interesting to learn something about who we all are, because this is a community building activity. And it also ignites and brings up some interesting topics for the dialogue later. So please do participate in the polls. You will see the results immediately after the presentation. So there will be a poll between each of the presentations. With that, I would like to introduce Marie-Françoise Voidrot. She is Europe Director of the Innovation Program in the Open Geospatial Consortium, OGC. She has a very long experience with working also with standards and other activities in Météo France for more than 30 years. She has multiple roles now in GEO. She is a member of the program board. She is very active in the GEO Data Working Group, co-chair of the data sharing and data management principles subgroup. And she is an awarded lady with the valuable Gardels Award from Odyssey. Marie-Françoise, I give you the floor.
So, as introduced by Bente, this dialogue series is about the GEO Open Knowledge Statement. So, what is open knowledge? There is a definition from the Open Knowledge Foundation saying that open knowledge is any content, information, or data that people are free to reuse, reuse, and redistribute without any legal, technological, or social restriction. So we heard about open data, we heard about open software. All this is part of open knowledge, but open knowledge is a global concept encompassing all that. Open knowledge organizations and activists have proposed principles and methodologies related to the production and distribution of knowledge in an open manner. So what about GEO? This is exactly what GEO began to think about in 2019. They were considering to make an open statement on open science at the start. And in fact, there was a draft that has been developed by a team gathering people from the Capacity Development Working Group and others from the GEO community. And due to the importance of open science to capacity building, they have gathered people who were involved in open science and capacity building, and particularly in developing countries. But after a revision and iteration, the statement was considered like too restrictive, and it was revised, including the title to become Open Knowledge Statement. So open knowledge includes open science, but it's considered to be more closely aligned with the GEO mission and vision, which aim to support also decision-making and not only research or primary science. So the statement provides now a rationale and impetus for the open context of activities of the GEO work program and the GEO community, and the results of which will then be made accessible through the GEO Knowledge Hub, which is a development that has been started 2 or 3 years ago within GEO, and is critical to this sharing. So considering the statement, it provides, it's just a short document of some pages, but it provides different approaches to open knowledge, different type of contributions, which are open science, of course, open access for data, of course, but also citizen and participatory science, open data, open reproducible research, open software, open infrastructure, open hardware, open education, open evaluation, and diversity of knowledge. So this is a series, and this is the 6th dialogue. So in the previous one, we have covered all the boxes here, which are identified as done. You can see that today we would focus on citizen and participatory science, and we still have to cover diversity of knowledge to have covered all the different approaches which are included into the statement. So these are the dates of the previous dialogues. Today we are here. We are going to add one about the diversity of knowledge between, I think, the 14th and the 28th of September, but we still have to consolidate the date with the speakers. And then we will have 2 more ones to brainstorm on how this can apply to GEO. And we will probably have one about the progress of a tool that has been presented last year in a dialogue, the self-assessment tool. Each dialogue has a presentation about the theory. This is what I'm doing here, the theory of the context and what we are going to talk about. And then we will go through several examples with our speakers. All the previous dialogues are accessible. Of course, they are findable and accessible. We are trying to work on open science, open knowledge, and this includes the FAIR approach. So all the previous recordings are accessible on the Knowledge Hub, and you have here the link. And on YouTube, we publish progressively. We still have to update the last one, but probably we share, progressively we share more and more. So the focus for today is citizen and participatory science. It is defined into the statement in this way. The active engagement and contribution of actors beyond the established research community can achieve a higher representation of the society and build up science literacy. Allowing citizens to contribute to science enables an evidence-based decision-making process by policymakers and the creation of a sustainable economy. And this will be the topic for today. You will see several examples. Think about it, how to include that into our GEO knowledge sharing. Thank you very much. And I wish a very good dialogue today.
Thank you very much, Marie-Françoise. Now you have set the scene. So we move swiftly over to the next speaker, namely Uta Wen. I will introduce Uta for you very briefly. Also, these slides, by the way, where you see a short bio for each of the speakers, will also be made available as part of the documentation of each of these dialogues. So you can study the background of our speakers later if you want. So Uta is a associate professor of the water innovation studies at the IHE. What's the name of in Delft on water education? Yes, and Uta has been working on citizen science for many years. She's a social scientist, but I can assure you she has a deep understanding also of technical matters, ICT, and she's working in the cross line between these transfer of these scientific or technical knowledge into society and how they are interacting. She's co-leading communities of practice, and both European and globally. She works both European and globally. So Uta, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Wendy. Okay, if you stop sharing the screen, I will start sharing mine. Excellent. Thank you so much for the invitation to participate in this dialogue. I look forward to the dialogue with the other panelists, but also with the participants. And without further ado, let's dive into what citizen science and citizen observatories are and explore to what extent they actually represent more than just data. As Bente has already given you a bit of an introduction to my work, just a few words that I do action research. So I help setting up citizen science initiatives in Europe, Africa, elsewhere, but sometimes also in an advisory role, helping them to achieve impact and feeding that back into theoretical and concepts and resources for us as a community to advance our ways of doing citizen science. So when we talk about citizen science, that can, of course, be defined in many ways, and it has been defined in many ways. But it's overall very much an umbrella term for many different shades of gray of how we can engage in a whole range of activities and ways of interactions of how we produce data and knowledge in entirely new constellations of stakeholders. There is a common misconception that citizen science is primarily only about involving citizens in data collection, but actually, as the slide is trying to show on the left, in fact, there is no limitation in principle as to the steps of the scientific method in which citizens, communities, members of the public can participate in the production of scientific knowledge. And it can be also in many different ways. On the right, you see the illustration that comes back from the work I did together with Lilja Bye, who's also here, who had created this slide to illustrate how at each step, actually, there's many different ways in which citizens can contribute to the production of scientific knowledge. But then how engagement takes place differs to some extent from project to project. Some order has been created by distinguishing what is often called the 3 Cs, the contributory projects, the collaborative projects, and the co-created projects, with the contributory projects being the more limited ones indeed, focusing mostly on the contribution of data. The collaborative projects, citizens can have involvement in several steps, whether it's providing the data, but also analyzing data, communicating research results, perhaps even assisting then in revising the research design for the next time round. And the co-created projects are much more on an equal basis, where researchers and citizens work together from the start to create projects and cooperate closely also in any phases and steps of the project. But there are also other really important distinctions. And I like this particular scheme because it teases apart, on the one hand, who's really in the lead as knowledge producer in such initiatives. Is it more the scientific side, the researchers, or indeed we also see the other end of the vertical axis, citizens and communities. And if we then take into account why they're doing it, what is the purpose? Are they answering a scientific question, or are they actually very action focused in their local environment, producing interventions in the socio-ecological system? We find that this helps us to actually unpack this landscape of different forms of citizen science. So we see that not all citizen science is science-led. There is, a really important component with community-driven, community-led initiatives that arguably are just as important. And it really also helps to highlight the role of knowledge and not just data for taking decisions, for triggering action, and the various stakeholder dynamics that inevitably we have in these schemes. So perhaps, you have guessed by now that I'm very passionate about not forgetting that citizen science is about people. We're involving people in new ways. But actually, what we also must not forget is not only about members of the public. So when you look at the blue bubbles here, you see that, of course, we have the citizens and communities, but we also need the scientists and their expertise to really make sure that the research questions that are being posed, the data that's being collected, how it's being analyzed, follows scientific practice and quality. And at the same time, it also brings decision makers and policymakers into the picture who take decisions based on the evidence that such schemes produce, but also help them create the conditions then for actions to take place. So citizen science is multi-stakeholder, and we're not just talking about bilateral relationships between citizens and scientists. There are a whole array of stakeholders involved, simplified here. And then these variable forms of citizen science that we've alluded to so far really means that we also can strengthen some of these existing interfaces that we know exist. So the science policy interface is something we've talked about for a long time, and similarly also participatory environmental governance is something that we've explored. But citizen science, of course, can enhance these interfaces and then bring them together in new ways. So moving on to the GEO context, which of course promotes science, but also its application within decision making. I think it's good to take a look at this particular form of citizen science called citizen observatories that's been around, particularly in the European context, for a number of years, if not decades. And it really focuses on a particular type of stakeholders forming a community. So not only the citizens and communities, scientists and aggregators, but also decision makers really forming a community. Often this involves ICT infrastructure in the form of platforms and tools for data collection, data processing, user feedback, and collaboration. And they undertake joint activities to really plan what is this observatory about, how we're going to go about data collection, but also how do we link into the relevant policy processes. So this inherent link and purpose of citizen science to drive data into policy and decision making, I think is really very relevant for the context of GEO that we're talking about. And we've thought this through in a number of projects. What we're showing here is really that we're seeing that we actually reshaping the relations between science, society, and policy, and not in just a single way, not in a binary way, but actually we have certain flavors that come into play. Because it depends really, what is it we're trying to do to get done together, and how can we get this done together? So we really see that there's the more science environmental monitoring focused schemes where there's a strong focus on implicit and explicit data collection by citizens, whereas we move on towards collaborative planning and environmental stewardship, which gives us increasing layers of engagement, consultation, feedback, and discussion interactions until we come to environmental stewardship, where we really have created relationships that are what can be called a fully realized dialogue and shared responsibilities for natural resource management. So that really shows how the value of citizen science, and particularly citizen observatories, can go beyond the data itself, but actually the entire knowledge co-creation processes and the knowledge application processes into decision-making and taking actions. And to give an example on the Ground Truth project, where we developed the scheme and also the co-design methodology of how to co-design demand-driven citizen observatories, we could see that the cases that we worked with in Europe and Africa really made local choices of what kind of observatory they want, what is the focus, what is the flavor, if you like, and what kind of relationships are they aiming for. And of course, this is just the snapshot at the start of these processes. This doesn't mean people or the observatories are locked into any of those. They can, of course, transition from simpler forms, more focused more on data collection, to those more focused on environmental stewardship. This work is also continuing. We're building on this in the current CityOps project, where we really look in more detail how we can strengthen the uptake of the data and knowledge produced by citizen observatories, and really want to deepen the role of citizens in governance processes. We worked with 85 cities throughout Europe and existing citizen observatories in those to see how we can really enhance those existing initiatives, that they serve as vehicle for what we call societal transformation towards sustainable development. And of course, the backbone of that is the data and knowledge produced by these initiatives. Overall, when we were running the We Observe project, we mapped out the kind of topics that citizen observatories have covered so far. There seems to be no limit. So here you see a little scheme that we have clustered, and we see just the breadth of the thematic focus that citizen observatories have embarked on already. So there's sheer endless areas of applications for environmental management, decision-making, and policy. So to wrap up, I hope that you've realized that citizen science and citizen observatories are about even more than just data, not belittling the data, of course. We haven't had time to talk about many other aspects of the impacts that we can have. But I'd like to wrap up just perhaps for those who are newer to this topic. A lot of work has been consolidated. One of the ways in which we've done this is the cookbook, the We Observe cookbook, that you can either download or you can use our interactive online version to really find, like say, the right recipes for where you're at with your thinking about citizen observatories and how you can set them up. There's also an ongoing MOOC on the topic of how you can make a difference with citizen science. Thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Uta. I think we discovered that citizen science can have many flavors, as I think you said. And as promised, I will share the result of the poll that we did while you were speaking, Uta. I will share the results with you. You were asking, have you been involved in citizen science? So information about you as an audience. And we see, not surprisingly, I guess, many of you have been involved, even initiated citizen science projects and contributed. We also have an app developer here, so very often citizen science apps are being used. And we also see that there are some that are interested in learning more about citizen science. So thank you for participation in the poll, and we will then move on to the next speaker, which is Joan. So I will share my screen and introduce Joan to you. You see, Joan Mazo from CREAF, which I believe is an Institute for Environment and Forestry in Spain. And he has worked on interoperability for many, many years. He is leading a specialized group on that, actually, expertise in GIS as well, and has been working in many years and in several organizations, both OGC and ISO, TC 211, with developing standards, a key for making data and information interoperable. He's been participating in many European projects, several citizen science projects. He's involved in GEO in many ways as well, and yet another award-winning speaker today. He also was rewarded with the Gardels, the OGC Gardels Award. So we have prominent people among us here. Joan, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, and getting prepared to share my screen. You already anticipated the title of the presentation, so that's something that I can skip, like my name and the fact that I'm working in CREAF, the Research Center for Ecology and Forestry Applications there in Barcelona. So talking about interoperability, the first question in citizen science, the first question is we have been working on improving interoperability in the data, in the official data generated from the administration for quite a while, creating data portals and so on. The Inspire directive, made official this obligation in the European Union. So actually we are in good shape because we have some technologies, we have some applications, we have some solutions to actually prevent the existence of silos in the geospatial data in the public administration. The question is citizen science going to be the new silo? And that's because, as you can see here in the screen, and that's an old collection of logos. If we try to do that today, maybe there will be, double more or even more. All these projects produce some information, some data. They might or might not interoperate. And the problem with many projects, but particularly on citizen science, is sometimes the lack of resources. So that means that they prioritize the main objectives of the project, and maybe sharing data, maybe interoperating with other equivalent citizen science project, maybe interoperating with official data is not exactly a priority. There are excellent options like the OpenStreetMap or the GBIF in the biodiversity arena, but the situation now can be improved. So the solution is very simple. Let's de-silo citizen science by integrating or by allowing integrating data from a disparate number of sources maintained by several actors, and let's get rid of the silos. I'm not entering what is interoperability. I haven't said that. There are many definitions, but one possible definition is to be able to actually reuse the same applications and the same way to address the data from one data source to the next. There are several levels of interoperability, and technical interoperability is one of the levels that I work more. Semantic interoperability is also something that we are addressing. Both have technological solutions. The organizational interoperability and the legal interoperability are levels that are more social and talk more about how the organizations relate to each other and how they can exchange data and information. So I got just 10 minutes and I spent already 3. So in 7 minutes, I should enumerate just a couple of problems, and that will be all that I have time to. So one of the things that I would like to talk about is this idea that I have an API, so I'm interoperable. And I really like this small text that I found in this web page saying that API interoperability is actually a myth. And if we concentrate on the last sentence, it expresses a reality, actually. In the long run, nobody wants their APIs to work together. What they really want is that anyone uses our API. So that definitely doesn't guarantee interoperability. Do you want an example? This is sensor community API definition, and this is what I get if I request some observations. This is a JSON representation of a fragment of the data. This is Smart Citizen. That's another project more localized in Barcelona. They also allow you to download observations in order to emphasize that they are different. They are registered in black background, but that's just a joke. In practice, what we really need to take a look is the data structure to see that maybe the concepts are there, and the timestamp in one site is actually the updated at in the other site, and the latitude and longitude are actually in a different position, but fortunately in this time they are in the same place. The value it's sometimes a child of sensor, some other times a child of sensor data values. So you really need to adapt your programming if you want to address one API or another. So there is a lack of interoperability, even if they both use API, because we cannot use the same tools to actually read the data. We cannot easily replace sensor community services with smart citizen services. So we could do that eventually, but that will require some development. The solution is using a more concrete standards. One solution that people could argue is that they use a standard description of the APIs. This is a recent development that allows you to document your API in a standard way. And maybe you recognize this format that has become very popular in recent years, but still the APIs are different. So that is only part of the solution. One other possible solution is actually to use SensorThing API. SensorThing API was designed to actually deliver observations. This is precisely what most of citizen science projects that actually collect data are doing. It comes from a versatile data model and with an OData query interface that's very powerful. This API is, for instance, used by the air quality, the responsibles of air quality authority in the Netherlands. So they are delivering their data in SensorThing API. So let's give it a try. This is what I'm able to retrieve by playing a little bit with SensorThing API. I know which are the variables that they are going to deliver: temperature, NO3, PM 2.5, this kind of stuff. So I did this request and I got the variables they used. Can I just replace this API by this provider by another provider? So different URL, but exactly the same syntax. Is this going to work if I switch from RIVM to this Fraunhofer Institute that also provide air quality? And the answer is yes. The response comes exactly in the same format. The observed properties are there. Of course, they are in this different order because they are providing different things, but we are seeing here the same units used, and the PM10 it's present in both sites. So one of the things that we have been working is if SensorThing API could be a solution, then we should adapt that to the citizen science requirements. And we have been working on best practices, and finally in an OGC international standard that has been approved very recently. It's pending a publication in the OGC website, but it's there. And what we did was to actually use the data model of SensorThing API and add the citizen description, a box for the campaign, a box for the license, because each citizen could use a different license, and a mechanism to group and relate observations together. So that is one solution. The next problem, the problem number 2, is how we will describe or better describe our data, how we can accurately describe it by annotating that in a way that it becomes machine readable. Most of the data looks like this. They are just sequences of values, and there is no clue on the message about the meaning of those values. What we really would like to do is to actually know what we are talking about, no? And being able to not just see the observations, but see the definition of the observed property. So here I have yet another SensorThing API. There are some parties, that means people doing things. One of those is called Joan Masó. It has some data streams. One of these data streams is measuring ambient light, and this data stream is actually providing some observations. And here the observations, this is the ambient light in my room just now. I have the sensor with me. If I replace observations here with observed property, I will get this, and this is the description of ambient light. And see here that I have URLs to what ambient light means. So I really link those numbers to actual content, to actual definitions defined in definition services. And here we have the units of measures, and again, there is a link to looks, so we can go there and actually know what the looks means. No? And here I'm presenting 3 URLs of vocabularies that you can use to actually semantic tag your data. Now here there is one from the European Environmental Agency, another one from the ELTER research infrastructure, and finally this QUDT that had a very good job during years to actually collect most of the variables that you can observe and the units of measures that you can use. Why we are doing this? So we are doing this because in the problem number 1, we can use the same tool with the different data providers, as I have illustrated, or we can use other tools with the same data set. We can replace the tools, we can replace the data. But if we have semantic interoperability solved, and we know what the data actually means, we can be sure then that we combine the right data in order to create bigger data sets, in order to do analysis that combines different data sources and get information on the quality and evolution of our environment. And that is what I wanted to tell you today. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much, Joan. And again, you demonstrated that you are able to make the devils in the details entertaining. I always appreciate you showing the codes. You got the pleasure also to show some codes, and that's actually, we can make fun of it, but that's actually the true. When you're wanting to make things interoperable, you have to go down to the nitty-gritty details. I did a poll this time too. I will share very quickly with the results with you. So have you ever tried to combine citizen science data with other data? And you see that people have tried, 28% completely yes, 22 partially, so that's not too bad. And there's a potential to try to do this. We hope that you are inspired by what Joan just showed you to make data interoperable. So thank you very much for participating again. Thank you, Joan. And we move swiftly over to the next one on the list. Dory, I will introduce Dory Edelist for you, who will give us an example, a concrete example. So Dory is an enthusiastic marine ecologist with a background from data-driven publication and in bio-innovation, fisheries and jellyfish ecology. And jellyfish is what we are going to hear about. Dory is also a colleague of mine in the Lilja Digital Twins of the Ocean. So with that, Dory, I give you the floor, and we are excited to hear about your jellyfish case.
Thank you, Bente, and thank you, Joanne, for a very inspiring talk. And all of you have actually set the stage here pretty well. And today we're going to be talking about jellyfish and citizen science and why it's such a perfect fit. And the main reason being is that jellyfish impact people in much the same way that people impact jellyfish. We are all in this soup of the sea together, and jellyfish impact not only economically but also physically us. I'm quite sure that if we run a survey and ask you guys how which one of you was stung by a jellyfish, if you spend enough time in the water wherever you are in the world, there's jellyfish everywhere. They are captivating, mesmerizing, ancient, the oldest animal in the world, actually, in history. They are captivating animals and also fearsome, and that creates a mixture that is of interest to humans, of interest to scientists, and to society. And of course, the way we interact with them impacts the ecosystem and the environment. And we see technology as sort of something that gives us leverage in order to take jellyfish and bring it into people's minds and hearts in a way that is also educational and not only from the crowdsourcing standpoint, which is the main thing we do, really. We use people as sensors, but we also give them a lot back. And this is part of the stuff that I'm going to try to convey now. So when we engage citizens and we want this engagement to be significant, then it needs time to breathe. I mean, those kids that you see Chaim teaching about jellyfish and even how to report jellyfish in there, I don't know if when they mature or age or become old, we will still be around. But in order for the project to be successful, it needs to have time. Citizen science projects, unless they have a given dictated goal, they need time to breathe and to mature. And this time is driven by two main forces. The first one being a mashigane, and like a crazy person, a super dedicated person to the goal. And the second issue is it needs funding. Without funding, it's really hard to pull through. So these are the two driving forces that I'm going to mention now, and I'm going to start with engagement and with the mashigane part. You need to spend time training the people, and if you train the people, you get the benefit of trained citizens who are more reliable, and therefore the question that is always recurring and has been the focal point of some of the talks here of data quality becomes easier to negotiate. I'll show you an example in a couple of minutes, and we'll end with a bang. So if you empower the people and you give them a sensation that they're part of something bigger, this will come back to visit you many times. And so far, what we've done, the main thing we've done is we've created this app that shows this map of jellyfish. This is a map of Israel. This is an Israeli project. And the map of the sea, fortunately, right now, does not look like this. Our seas right now, they look like this. We have a jellyfish-less summer, and this has been not throughout the entire Mediterranean, but regionally, we got very, very little jellyfish this summer, and we were able to predict this using the information of the people and giving it back to them in a myriad of ways. And this is something that I feel is part of interoperability, is having the data not only processed in a way that is reproducible and fair even, but something that is all as part of fair, it has to be shared. And sometimes data quality issues don't happen in real time, but if you get gold users, what we call trained gold users, and these are the ones we've spoken with, when you get them, half of your data issues are, you can improve the data and make sure that you validate, and they will help you self-validate sometimes. So people are a real resource here. This is an example of why a project needs to breathe, because in the beginning we had very little trained personnel, and today we have over 500 people that submitted more than 2,000 reports, and they are used to backstop once again the reports from the general population, and they allow us to look at the ecosystem and then say, okay, we see that a lot of jellyfish, this, for example, the x-axis is the weeks of the year, and the y-axis is different years. And we see that in the summertime, a lot of jellyfish congregate together. And we see this not only because of the multitude of reports, but also we use the gold users in order to create something we called the JSI, the Jellyfish Swarm Index. And in that index, gold users receive double the weight of usual users that were not specifically trained by us. And this is something that, it's helping us also reflect credibility back to the people. And of course, the contact with them, the Michigan aspect, when you need someone that's fully dedicated, sometimes it's me, but sometimes it's friends. And when you get to social networks, sometimes they run themselves, because people who are experts enjoy posting in them. And one time we got this post on the bottom left corner, you can see a jellyfish that was the first species, the first specimen of its kind ever recorded and reported. And we had a publication about it. And this is something that really, we have these people who reported this jellyfish to us. They are our friends forever now because of that. They appreciated becoming a part of science. So there are drawbacks for social networks, of course, but like any other piece of technology, if used properly, significantly enhance and facilitate the experience. So in Iliad, what we do is not only the data collection, validation, and analysis that I just showed, but we also deal with standardization and harmonization that I will show soon. The engagement can be both in person or remotely online, which is part of what we are doing right now, actually. It's not exactly training, but it's engagement. And we look at how people perceive jellyfish and their stings, whether they think they are monsters, and how they can contribute through those perceptions to what we actually do. For example, we have a sting survey, an epidemiological sting survey of jellyfish, and we now know how not to get stung and what to do if we get stung by species of jellyfish that this was not known before. So this is part of what we give back. And we develop an ontology, and we look at the marketplace as well, other factors or stakeholders that are impacted by jellyfish. And other things that we do in Iliad is model the swarms. We look at where jellyfish are in the ocean, and this is not yet a full forecasting system, but it works 3 days ahead and 3 days back, and you can actually see the swarms moving in space. And this is really nice and really useful for people who are about to venture out to sea, and also for other stakeholders such as desalination plants and infrastructure, other infrastructure. So this is just the passive drift model, and we're thinking about looking at how jellyfish move in the water column, and use part of what we know also from citizen science and also from reports, and also from tagging jellyfish and incorporating that into the model. Now, within ILIAD, we have the ocean information model, the OIM, and we want to incorporate jellyfish in there. And you can see jellyfish are right in there with the Darwin core and PPSR that was brought yesterday by Luigi. It was introduced and is really becoming a gold standard for citizen science. And if we're talking interoperability, then PPSR is probably a good idea if you want Joan Masso's code lines to fit each other. And this is something that we do within the project with OGC, as well as PSNC. And if yesterday Jay spoke of not only Jay, Buck, of course, and Rebecca also spoke about best practices and standards, then one of the ways to bring in the standardization aspects in here of creating these standards and best practices is ask the experts. This is exactly what we do. They say that if you thought of something good, then 50 people have already thought about it and 5 are actually doing something about it. So we went over and looked for other citizen science initiatives for jellyfish like us, and we found 14 of them just in the Mediterranean alone. So not only are we using the gold users, but we tapped into real experts of jellyfish, and we created a network. And the value of this network has been immense to us because it facilitates standardization in many ways. We took all of these guys who are well spread out across the Mediterranean, the southern European seas, from the Mediterranean, from Portugal actually to Turkey, some in the Black Sea as well. And we prepared this huge data schema. This is a small part of it that looks at every one of these initiatives. Like we found the Michigane, and we asked them exactly how many people are reporting, what are their main challenges, what is the location they work in, abundance, density, how they deal with those issues, the size bins, basically the lines of code that will later be translated into something interoperable and harmonized. And we collected some training material from them, like taxonomic guides, and looked at the different species that they feature, whether they sting or not, which is important because it draws attention, how big they are, how conspicuous they are, what type of people report. And then we ran an expert questionnaire that looked at what they thought was important and how important it was in actually achieving a good jellyfish observation initiative that is based on citizen science. And we found some interesting things like photos were important, and free text was also an enabler, while personal details, while in the FAIR principles, you may say that you think that all reporters should be exposed and out there, then data issues did emerge. And we noticed some concerns about the openness of everything, especially if some of the initiatives, of course, they were completely different from one another in the ways they operated, which is something Joan pointed at. But in all honesty, there will be an issue unless you, according to the FAIR principles, advise the people in advance that they will be becoming stars here. And this is becoming a star. Becoming a citizen scientist is also, I think, something that is giving back to the community. You can do it if you're not that kind of person, just by collecting or analyzing data, which is perfectly okay. But if you want to become like a community leader, then this is a very big opportunity for you. And we saw many people that did it along the years. We've been here since 2011 online, and we started in 2009 collecting the data. And these results that you see here, they go to show that we're not alone. Two other initiatives started in 2011 with us, and the majority of others have been existing for about 5 years. Once again, jellyfish are an easy sell. You can see that the way you count the abundance of jellyfish changes from one initiative to the other, and its importance. And and looking at the sizes of jellyfish might not be as important, for example, as looking at how many jellyfish are there. And this is stuff that, when analyzed properly, it will be golden when we determine the standards of citizen science for jellyfish. And when we ask them, our partners, these 14 initiatives, what were the main challenges, then this was the part that the question that I asked in the survey. You can see, eventually, we were able to offer solutions to everything. And if you're worried about the quality of the data and validation, that usually takes a lot of time, then that can be solved, that can be resolved. And if you worry about standardization, this is something that we've begun doing. Whether or not everyone will be doing the same thing, say 20 or 100 years from now, who knows? But we got to start walking this trail. And eventually, what everyone said is that funding, the Michigan needs to get paid, guys. We need, in order to have this longevity, there has to be some kind of stream of funding that keeps this alive, because as advanced as technology gets, it also gets expensive. I can give you an example. Just I'll stop sharing here. I'll give you just an example from our perspective of the Jellyfish Initiative. The AWS that Amazon charges in order to store the data has escalated from zero in the first 5 years of the project to about $200, $300 a month today. And in the summertime, when there are a lot of jellyfish around, not like this summer, it hikes to a lot more, because the traffic in the website gets hectic, and it can sometimes get crazy. So we are able to solve that, and it's very good that funding bodies like the EU and others supply this opportunity. But once again, this is something that needs to be provided for. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dori. A very interesting case indeed, and congratulations with such a great success over so many years. Very quickly, we are behind the schedule. We have one more to go, a very exciting example from Anis. But before that, I will share the results of our poll. So you were asked, which of these would you consider the biggest challenge for citizen science projects? And you see there's quite a unified distributions on boosting citizens' participation, data quality and validation. Data utilization is a little bit less of a challenge, but then standardization and funding, as you said, Dori. So thank you very much again for participating in the poll. We move swiftly now over to you, Anis. Let me share my screen and introduce you very briefly. So, share. Anis Saruk is a seasoned marine ecologist. His expertise lies in marine and coastal conservation, coupled with efficient management. He works now, and I will jump directly to that. Anis, you work as a project manager at the specially protected areas regional activity center of the Mediterranean Action Plan, which is a division of the United Nations Environmental Program. So you are working with many different countries, but mainly in the Mediterranean, and you are also representing SPARAC in the Iliad project, where we work together. And this picture here, by the way, shows a very happy Anis when he came back from a dive in Morocco just now, where he discovered some of the rare species that he is passionate about. With that, Anis, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Dente, and hi everyone. And also, Dori, you mentioned that jellyfish are everywhere in the sea, but also fishers are everywhere in the sea. So fortunately, we can talk to the fisher, not yet to the jellyfish, but you are also doing a great job. So I will start sharing my screen. Yes, so just very quickly, I mean, Sparak is based in Tunisia. We are part of the United Nations Environment Program. So there are several regional centers, but Sparak is really dealing with the marine biodiversity in the world Mediterranean, and we are working with all the countries with the same level and supporting them in different fields, starting from field survey, trainings, also ensuring that regional and global goals are achieved. And whatever there is a need, of course, support is provided, and we are closely, let's say, working with national also stakeholders. So I wanted to share with you today an experience we had this last 5 years, because we start implementing in the MED, and this is the beautiful team that was involved and partners in the MED on that initiative. We got in 5 years to collect data to understand why we have incidental catch, we call it bycatch, of vulnerable species in the Mediterranean, and also try to find solution to mitigate that one. But the starting point, you know that data is quite important. Whenever you have data, you'll be able to make the right decision, you'll be analyzing it, and maybe be possible to provide some solution. But data that is coming maybe from fisher is usually quite hard to get, but it was so important. So without fisher, you will not get data on what is really happening on board, what is really happening while they are fishing. So this sharing experience and knowledge project was a parallel one to the big, let's say, one MED bycatch project, and we'll be discovering together what was happening. Medaset, a regional NGO working mainly on sea turtles, but they were handling a lot of other species thanks to this, and they were coordinated, and we were also working with them. So one of the main objectives of this initiative was this one, so mainly to capture the personal knowledge and experience of observers that works closely with fishers during observers program based on lesson learned, positive and negative. We always talk about best practices, but sometimes we forget about the negative, let's say, practices we should avoid. So to get the feedback under own condition, how best to build strong relationship and maintain it with observers, but also with fishers. And one of the biggest, let's say, objective was to be able to elaborate and promote maybe guidelines on how to establish successful collaboration and to share data between scientists, observers, fishers, and also decision makers and managers. So different steps we put at the very beginning. So the first one was how to gain the trust of fishers. It is so difficult, but so needed. How to integrate well into the team of fishers on board. It's easy to go to the port, but not easy to go on board, not easy to start discussing with fishers and have the same language. How to coordinate with other observers, because they are a team, so they are not having the same approach maybe, and they are not working in the same country. In this particular initiative, just to give you this example, we were working at the same time in Morocco, in Tunisia, in Turkey, in Croatia, and Italy. So different culture, different objectives, but I will try to do the same way of approach. We have also coordinator and supervisors. These are teams of experts and fishery experts, environmental experts. We talk about data, but usually accuracy of data depending on these people. If they do a very good sampling plan, if they do the right approach and analyze early the data, they will be trying to do it and improve it while we are progressing. And it was exactly the same. Every 2 weeks, they were putting a new sampling plan based on the feedback from the observers. They were asking more and more accurate question and feedback, and we were improving up to the end of the project. So the other thing, what are the difficulties encountered during the observation work and how to overcome to them? So we got this feedback from the observers, but also from the fisher, you will see, and how to make the fishers cooperative and what are the main challenges brought by the project to them. So we got also this kind of feedback. So in the case of fisher, who is also an observer, because we got this nice surprise that some fisher wanted to be also observers on other boats, and how we can overcome his own conviction and stop fishing for vulnerable species. Because this experience from fisher to fisher was quite important even to us, not only scientists to fishers. So how we did? First of all, we did a lot of workshops in the beneficiary countries. And it was with observers, but also with Fisher at the same time, having the same discussion. It was a lot of work, but we got a lot of feedback that was quite important at the very early beginning. We also, this is something we really liked, and we understood that whenever you start promoting real experience from Fishers, showing them working with scientists, showing scientists talking about Fisher and Fishers talking about scientists and decision makers, and saying whatever they want to say, you can get very good results. So we did a lot of short film, because it should go to make everyone look into it in 3-4 minutes. But it was so important to make it and showing these people are working. One of the major, let's say, short movie is available at the Waterbeer platform. It's called Salt in the Ice. It's full of emotion. I really owe you to go and see it. You will see Fisher from different countries sharing their experience, observers sharing their experience, but the main aspect is how they start changing behavior, how they have been convinced and they start working together. This was really important to show this kind of experience. At the end, we even did a workshop, an international one, asking if there will be some people on a volunteer basis willing to be national or even international bycatch ambassador. And I will give you one of the best example. One of the fisher who accepted already to be an observer, he transformed his boat in a way that while fishing, of course, he will be going there. This boat was one of the main one catching sharks. You know that sharks, there are commercial species, but vulnerable species. So he transformed the boat to catch other species. But now, whenever this boat is at port, it is also used to go and talk to other fishers to make them also change. He's really a very, very good ambassador in his region, talking every day with the other fishers and trying to convince with their own language. So there are different also aspect we took into consideration. We can have different approaches to engage with Fisher for applying observer program methodology. We need this best practices behavior to work with fishers on board, in port, and maybe even other methodology, even ensuring a self-reporting. It is starting in some region. We need this fisher perspective. How do they see what is happening at sea? Do they have already some solution to share? Do they want to collaborate and provide us with data and start to find solution together? And what are the fishers' expectations whenever they start to be convinced and willing to go to participate and sharing their knowledge, I will say even their science. So we also got these problems on board observation. It was already some of the very basic ones, obtaining authorization, not from the administration, but also from the fishers, because you can get all the papers you need from the administration, but if the fishers say, no, I don't want anyone on board, you will not get in. Challenge is also, whenever you are in board, from both fisher point of view, but also for scientists, in identifying some of the vulnerable species, the time you will need for the data collection, but also later for the data analysis, and to also come back with more accurate, maybe, approach, to establish a common schedule that works for you, but also for the fishers, because they will not ask you, okay, I will go, the weather is good, so they will just take the boat and go. So you have to always adapt yourself to this, and also witness on compliance or malpractices. You have to avoid this kind of things. So other problem, this time it is in the ports to find the appropriate time to complete the questionnaire. If you have a questionnaire to ask to the fisher, you will see there are times to avoid, there are times to really use. Fishers are not willing to participate sometimes. You have to deal with it. Correct identification of vulnerable species, especially when the catch is already done, and you are asking a fisher if during the last month you got this and this and this, maybe you will have some difficulties if you don't use the right tools. And also sometimes unreadable and incompatible data. You will have maybe data that should look like relevant, but not really useful at the end for your survey. And now, how to strengthen your data collection program? First of all, increasing awareness of the purpose and objective of the project. That's why communication material are really, really important, and you'll see an example later on. Make it easier for Fisher to join in. I mean, to not make a lot of administrative aspect or whatever, to make the Fisher really willing to join you. Have a simple but also standardized methodology. In the MedBikers project, we succeed to get a protocol for the Mediterranean and the Black Sea adopted by all the countries, and we succeed even to put it in practice with fishers. And now we are even updating it to improve it thanks to this feedback we got from both observers and fishers. So this data and collection protocol is there. It is available, and you will get the link if you are interested. So I was talking about best practices, but also worst practices. I will not go into the details because you will have the link to download the whole guideline, but these are some examples. The first content, whenever you go in a harbor or on board, this is what went from talking to observers, but also from Fisher. Sometimes there are very, very simple things that looks simple, but they are quite hard in that case. Speaking the language of fishers, it's not something easy, but whenever you get the right people, the right scientists that already have these practices, you will succeed. In the other way, talk only about the project is not very good. Approach the fisher when they are boarding, when they are landing their catch is maybe the worst time you need to approach the fishers, and maybe the data will be impacted by that. And the other thing, we got also this feedback. What are the best practices on board? What are the worst practices on board? So you see that you have to always be ready, your equipment, technical devices, everything, because the fisher call you, okay, I'm going out in 1 hour. You have to be ready to always obey to the captain. Whenever you are on board, you should be part of the crew, helping. And it was amazing to see what the observers were able to do. Some of them were just cooking. Some of them have some skills to repair the nets. So even the fisher was happy to have someone helping him or her on board in doing these things. So you are using your skills to be really part of the crew. And the other aspect, I mean, if you are acting like the scientist or something like a superior, or be a bit sensitive whenever you see a sea turtle catch and hurt, I mean, you have to avoid sometimes this kind of practices. And also at boat questionnaire, at the port, so the local dialect of fisher, to be attentive, to always try to listen first, to let them talk whenever they start talking. This means that they are willing really to help you. And in the other part, to be in a hurry, to say, okay, I have 3 questions, I just don't have time. So you are trying to let him finish his talk. I mean, and asking them how much money they are getting. I mean, there are a lot of now this kind of best practices and worst practices we got. And everything, and even to and maintain this relationship was quite important. So everything now is summarized in a guideline that is now available online. It is translated, we show in the previous presentation, but even yesterday, how much it was important to make this kind of tools available in local languages. We have it right now in 3 UN language, Arabic, French, and English, and we'll be also providing this in soon in other languages. And because this is quite important. I mean, a guideline is usually a document. It could be that someone is willing to read it, even if you do it quite short. I mean, even if it's 10 pages, summarizing very well, having a nice picture, nice diagram, you also need to think about make it useful and to be used by anyone, any citizen, and also make it useful for citizen science. So this is an infographic we did. It is available in different languages. It's taken into consideration the different culture, the different countries. So it can be used anywhere in the Med. it's also be possible to translate it. We are open to this. I will just stop my sharing for a while and show you what is how in one page everything is summarized. So this is the key results of the Med by Cat project. As you see, we have the problem at the very beginning. You see that these are, just to give you an example, the number of onboard questionnaires we were able to get from this approach. So more than 3,600 for people who work on fisheries. This is huge. The number of questionnaires we got, and we got even more than 3,000 fishers directly collaborating with us thanks to that. So we start with the problem. We got a solution that is working together. You'll see that it was all a matter of trust, which is quite difficult, but we can do it. It's just we need to be open to build the relationship. Sorry, I'll do the zoom. Here you have some testimonies from a Turkish fisher, for example, who was saying observers should work not only because of the survey, but also for loving it and wanting to be in contact with fishers. A Moroccan observer was saying, don't just be an observer, be a friend. And we discovered that up to now, even if the project finished, they are still best friends, fishers and observers, fishers and scientists, which is amazing. And we have finally a Tunisian fisher saying, provide mutual trust, frankness, and respect of the fishers. So they were expecting this. And how to build the relationship, you see, connect on a personal level, be open and honest, listen attentively, avoid jargon, keep a secret. Sometimes the fisher gives you a secret and he's testing you. So show appreciation. And the third step is how to work together. It can be at port, it can be on board. I would just take the example on board. So you see, to respect the dynamic on the vessel, don't put your own rules, explain the data collection process, why, how, and what are the main objectives. Be one of the team, establish healthy boundaries, and stay organized and efficient in data collection. With that one, you can really keep the magic alive of the work. You will get a lot of data as we succeed to get up to now. So you still keep visiting them. So don't stop because the project stopped or because we don't need any more the fishers. Share the project information with them and share the context with them. With that, you will be able to do whatever you want. And we have also all the material we were able to produce available in different languages, and anyone can use it if they wish also to follow. So these are the main partners. I will stop this sharing and come back to the presentation. And at the end,
Anis,
I will show you. Yes.
Anis, yeah, just looking at the time, we have 10 minutes left. So if you could wrap it quickly up, that would be great. So we can give the floor to everybody, to the discussion. Sorry.
Okay, Bente. I was at the last slide, but the last slide is a very short video. Okay. So I wanted to show you this because what we did and what we got was really amazing. You talked yesterday about early ocean careers, and what we did is that we did this training with fisher, with observers, and we got sometimes you need a champion, and we got that girl that have a lot of voluntary engagement. We gave her maybe some wings, some hope. She started changing all the fishers around her, and she succeeded even to do something that was not absolutely expected even by her. Her father, who was fisher for years and years, changed his behavior. And I will show you the video of her testimony, and I'll finish with that one about this. It is subtitled, and you see that we are using also the local language.
وساعات ما نلقاش خدامه كما يقولوا مش بحري ماي نهزموا مغشاشه 3 4 غشاشر وندخل بهم نار مشبك هي قالت لي نقرا انا بابا باش تقرا على البحر قلت لها البحر صعيب وفكرنا من البحر اقرا حاجه اخرى خير البحر صعيب علينا قالت لي نحب البحر برا قلت لها اقرا على البحر تقرا البحر والله كنت نطلع بكري كالفار وكحرشيه ومعناتها كالحوت هذاك والله نعملوش قيمه معناتها نلوحه ونخليه يموت. تو ما جيت عمل قالت لي بابا الحوته هذه معناتها هذه فيها مستقبل وفيها واحد وليت نبجلها نخلصها هذيك الحوته ونسيبها في البحر ما تمشي على روحها. قبل ما نعملش قيمه قال والله نخليها تموت وما ما نعرفش معناتها ما يجبر. هي وقفت قالت لي راهو يا بابا الحرشيه هذه والريه هذه وهذه معناتها هذوما في مستقبل. وليت بجلة مع الحوت حبيبي باش يموتوش يصيب في كرعاشه تضرب الضوء. والله نظل بشويه نعمل لها هكايا معناتها انا نمسها وهي تسكني بوحدها. نسيبها خليها تمشي. قبل والله نسيبها والله قبل نقتلها الحق نتاع ربي قبل نقتلها. باش بامل امل قالت لي بابا ما عادش قالت راهو نمك فيه مستقبل وراهو ولا نسيبوه. والله وليت نوصي ولدي في الفلوق نقول له كي تطلع زاده كيف باش ما تقتلهاش. وامل علمتني برشا حاجات انا معناتها قبل كنت ما نعرفهاش معناتها تو انا قبل نشد الريه ولا نشد الواحد علاش نقتلو مو نسيبو معناتها ما نعرفش انا هاكا معناتها تو ما لقيت امل. حتى بحار اخرين نوصيهم نقول لهم كي تشدوا هكا وهكا تشدوا هكا راهو هذايا ما يصير فيه معناتها منتوج من بعد وما يحبوش عليه معناتها سيبوا خليه يمشي على روحه. والله نبزوه على الحوت ونسلكوه وسيبوه. اسمي انا طاهر عرفه عمري 72 سنه. من معناتها خرجت من المكتب وعمري يجي 18 سنه وانا في البحر تاريخنا هذا.
So in this video, we just not just all showed a fisher talking about his change. We used it a lot with other fishers because we are showing what is behind any fisher, a family and a house. And that was really important to the others to make them also involved and contributing. Mm-hmm. And the last one, and it was really an amazing thing happening to us. That last year we won the Navy Blue Award from the European Days from DG Mare, and it was for the full family. I mean, from the fisher to the scientist to the organization. A really, really remarkable moment. And we were saying at that occasion that fishers need scientists as much as scientists need fishers, and only by working together we can protect our Mediterranean. So I finish with that. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, and it's a very, very inspiring story indeed. We have 5 minutes or 6 minutes. We can stay over a little bit longer if you like to have a bit of dialogue. It was a beautiful video. I will use 2 seconds to share the polls since I promised that. You asked in designing science-based fisheries and ocean environment solution, what role should fishers play? And you see everybody agree that they should be actively engaged in the co-design with scientists and stakeholders and also other stakeholders. So thank you again for participating. And then we move on to the questions.
Thank you very much. And a really an amazing dialogue series. Congratulations to Bente, Marie-Françoise, and the speakers. Unbelievable, interesting. Yeah. So the question is, my question, and not only my question, is the question from many members of the GEO community. We used to have a citizen science working group in GEO, and since some time this is not active anymore, the question that I'm bringing here to the table is, there is a lot of interest for this to continue. And one option could be to integrate the citizen science within the data working group, and probably within the in situ data subgroup. But this is up for discussion for everyone. And there is a lot of interest from the community side. So I think GEO could be a very nice place to continue this work and the valuable experience you're bringing to the table. I leave this with, it's a question, it's an open question.
Yes, and this is a question, I believe, both to the audience. I see many familiar names and some new names. And of course, all the speakers. I know Joan had to leave, unfortunately, because he was just squeezing in a little bit time for us during another conference. But Uta was involved. Yeah, Uta, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. In fact, I co-chaired with Lea Shenley, who's also here, the GEO Citizen community activity for a couple of years. And indeed, it was a very active community. But, you know, those communities, just like the work we do with Citizen Science, requires engagement and requires resources for that engagement. Having said that, we have some major acquisitions in the European part that we represent here. So we could really consider, you know, how we can channel resources again. I think officially we left Joan in charge, but he's just also so super busy that maybe, you know, his time's already up and we can move on. So thank you so much, Paola, for, you know, for the interest, resparking the interest. I think indeed we can decide, you know, what's the best to do. And I think Lea has a more official role, formal role in the data working group, or had it. I'm not up to date with that. So maybe indeed also a bilateral discussion to see what's best to integrate or to rekindle the CITSI community activity that we already had on the GEO.
Yes, let's ask also then sort of the newcomers, Dory and Anis, but now I see Marie-Françoise raised her hand, but I would love to hear from Anis and Dory about an interest, potential interest, because I know you are involved in both citizen science and participatory science, so it might be relevant to introduce you to this new community. Marie-Françoise.
Yes, I just wanted to answering to Uta that yes, citizen science, I've been in GEO in the past, but recently there is a big stress on in situ and the need of in situ because we are going towards more and more technology like artificial intelligence, machine learning, but we know that without ground truth data, maybe 10% of the applications about machine learning really become operational because it just lack data to validate and so on. So in citizen science is an alternative to in situ. So I don't mean that we have to give up with in situ, but we know that in situ is a real challenge and in the same dynamic. I think that citizen science should be revived now that there is more and more pressure on in situ.
Yes, I also see Hugo is here. Can you also be prepared to say something? If I may encourage you. Dory, do you have some, is this new for you, this community in GEO? You're muted, Dory, yeah.
First time I hear about it, and I'm glad it exists. There are various communities out there, none more important for us than EXA, for example, in our neck of the woods. I don't know about globally, but it's good to know that GEO exists. And should the group come back to life, I would be happy to participate.
Good. Anis, how does this sound for you and what the work you do?
I mean, it's interesting, of course, because citizen science, we see it as a future also aspect we need to deal with. Accuracy of the data, of course, is something, and that's why I wanted to show this example of that is behind the data collection, that there is also a lot of work you can do to make their citizen science contributing more and more, but also providing you very good data. I saw also that Dory showed this, let's say, you call this, Dory, I think, gold citizen science. I mean, this is the future. This is the future. Whenever there are people that are there in your ecosystem that are able to bring you even a few data, you have to take advantage of it. So if there is this already ongoing work, it's really amazing. We can integrate it and be part of it.
Great. Hugo, I see your face.
Yeah, so I'm here and listening to this wonderful discussion, and it has been wonderful to be here and to listen to the experience you shared. So, but actually, talking specific about this, there are quite a few challenges and research challenges where we can work on. And because this participation, actually the participation of citizens, the contribution of humans with artificial intelligence is quite important in the present and in the really near future. And there's, for me, I will say two major questions. One is the participation, how we can enhance the participation of users, of citizens in this kind of initiatives, and the other is actually the quality of data. And we can have quality of data if we can educate, if we can train, as Dori was sharing, if we can train the citizens to perform it, and what kind of mechanisms we can use for this training, what kind of situations and what kind of technologies we can use for training, for engaging, and for bringing people to contribute. I think these are actually major challenges, and we must have this kind of examples, these use cases to put some of our research on the ground and use it on it. So of course we have many mechanisms that we are testing and that we are using in our research, and of course we will have some of them, I hope, in the case of the Portuguese jellyfish with IPMA in the near future. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk, Bente.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Hugo. Absolutely. I see two hands. What you just described, Hugo, is like in this very dialogue here, we showed the breadth from the coding of Joan to the very hands-on engagement in detail that we saw from Anis, and then Dori, of course, somewhere in between there, actually. So, Dori.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Hugo. This really is what I was trying to convey in the beginning of my presentation, is that technology should be our aid. It should be our crutch. It should be our friend here. And technology is a great tool when properly applied. I mean, if you look at what iNaturalists are doing, for example, using photo ID. This is something that we do in Iliad as well. This is also, it makes it fun. It's part of the gamification of the thing is for a person to be able to point their cameras at something and then know what it is. And while fishermen, for example, for Anis, he knows that they know most of the animals better than anyone else. And while you can't use maybe Latin names in order to speak with them, then for sure AI can bridge this gap and know what it is that they are referring to, especially if they take a picture of it. So technology should be our ally here. And while it cannot replace all functionality of humans, of course, and it will not be citizen science without the citizens, then in the way of facilitating reporting, for sure, and also in helping standardize the data, because technology, when like Joan showed in his talk, when it becomes interoperable, then it's golden for us. We'll be able to compare apples and oranges and get away with it. So like get away with it, I mean statistically, and so far as the level of knowledge that we extract from our projects. So it's a good question.
Yes, Thank you, Dori and Uta.
Yeah, just briefly, thank you for the question, Hugo. Of course, I'm going to pick up on the engagement part. How can we engage citizens and communities? And a lot of my work as a social scientist is actually on the incentive systems, the incentives and barriers that different communities, different settings have. And while I'm a great proponent of co-design methods, I thought it was really interesting that in the poll that Bente had during Anis's talk, you know, should the fishermen be involved in co-design? Is it enough, you know, to use other nuances? Lots of people said, yes, co-design. And I think we need to be really careful here. You know, we need to start with the people. And if your talk said to me anything, it was, these people are constrained for time and attention. You know, don't talk to them when they get on the boat, don't talk to them when they come off the boat. So I would be very reluctant to say, oh, now I talk to you and can you please also co-design? I think it's a really good example where what we may think is the gold standard to co-design with them, practically with their circumstances, sorry, it's far-fetched, it will not serve them, right? So I think we just also need to be flexible. Well, what kind of engagement approach can we use in any given circumstances, right? And really take into account the time, resources, and incentives and barriers that our target groups have that we really want to bring on board, rather than pushing one or other approach. And in some cases, we find people are perfectly happy only to contribute the data. Not everybody wants to co-design or can co-design.
Yes, I think Anis also showed that, well, co-design can be many different things. Maybe not, you know, the way that we saw it in E-Shape, for instance, very systematically. It was a more human approach, adapting to the situation, as you said, Uta. So maybe that's, yeah, the term co-design is also maybe up for discussions. Hugo.
I don't want to extend too much, but let me just say one thing, because co-design must have a start. And my background mostly is also from CSCW, computer supported collaborative work, and we have something that I think may help breaking the ice in the beginning of co-design. That is actually the ethnographic work. So you go to the field and you work with the people, and you understand how we can do things and introduce new process, introduce new technologies into their working practices, into their normal practice, and not being disruptive with that practice. And that is really important, because people are trained in some way, and you must go that way in order to have their engagement. And actually, when they have something, then they can start giving feedback, they can start working, but there must be some ice breaking. And actually this ethnographical work can actually complement the co-design, and most of the times we don't remember it, because it's really challenging and time consuming. And if you go to the most amazing examples, for example, the air traffic control, it was a work of 2 years into the air traffic control, and that's crazy to be there registering everything that is going on, but that must be like that.
Thank you, Hugo. I in the interest of time, I will give you the floor to conclude, Anis. But with that, I think we can continue another time. The material will be made available, and hopefully the dialogue can continue within the framework of a working group in GEO. Anis.
Thank you, Bente. No, I wanted just to finish. I mean, it was per purpose. I put co-design. It was also, I wanted to be a bit, let's say, provocative. It's quite a philosophical approach, because just to mention this, I mean, human being, we are developing so many things since we are on Earth, but we were learning from the nature. So is nature a co-designer with us, or did everything alone? I mean, you have to take it from both perspectives. That's why I wanted to use it. Are we to accept others maybe working with us? The purpose this was the message. Let's keep working all together, and that's all. Thank you.
That was a very fine conclusion, I think. Thank you so much for the excellent talk and presentations. Thank you, the audience, for staying with us so long over the time as well. Stay attuned to new publications on the next follow-up dialogue. There will be more. And go to the GEO Knowledge Hub to make sure that you can get access to all the earlier dialogues that we have had, and this one will also be placed there. But since you have been registered for this event, you will be sent also the recording, and with I assume that we will get your slide decks, right? A PDF form that we can share in the spirit of openness. So that you can send us that, so we include that as the knowledge package. With that, thank you so much, everybody, and until the next time we meet.